Hi, thank you for watching this video. Why are you here? Because you're like me and you need to get more done with less. In today's environment, we just need to have more stuff done in less time. We don't have the resources, we don't have time to goof around. We need to get done now. I'm going to demonstrate 3 examples here of things that you can do that you're going to learn how to do in this video today that's going to help you time starting right after you're done. There's no delay. Basically, we're going to teach you how to launch programs with a hotkey or a key combo. You can type a few letters and send text to whatever window you're in Windows, or also send a mouse click to some sort of a button or wherever coordinates you're trying to do. Why me? Well, I've been automating stuff for over 23 years now. I've given around 50 webinars teaching people how to automate stuff on a PC. I have over 600 videos on YouTube demonstrating how to do this kind of stuff. And I also have 3 Udemy courses in learning how to use AutoHotkey. So let's go ahead and get going. Let's see what we're going to cover. Specifically, what you're going to learn in this video here is basically which version of AutoHotkey to install and download, the editor to use, or there's several editors. There's one I'll recommend for you. The default settings you want to have in your first script, launching your first script. We're going to tackle hotkeys, looking at how to launch a program, how to send a mouse click, and how to send text to a window. And then we're going to look at HotStrings, where we're going to send text to a window, learn how to send special characters, and then sending without a space at the end. Also a little bit on troubleshooting, and then some other cool scripts and tools to use when you're just starting out that might help you. So let's go ahead and get started on the first one. All right, let's go ahead and download AutoHotkey. So open up whatever browser you like and then go to AutoHotkey.com. And once you're here, you'll see right here at the top of this, at the top of the screen, you'll see download. So let's click that. Always download the current version. And we're going to save that. We'll just save it wherever you like. I'm going to save it to my desktop. That's fine. You'll see here it's 3 megs. It's not a big file. I'm going to go ahead and launch that. Now, I do recommend you could go with the 64-bit, which is the default version. I recommend you do custom installation, use the Unicode 32-bit. It's just more compatible on average. So click that. You can click all the defaults. It really doesn't matter where you put it. It knows exactly where to go and hit install. It doesn't take long at all. And then just go ahead and hit exit. We don't want to run AutoHotkey. It doesn't actually do anything in itself. So we're going to exit out of that. Now, AutoHotkey files are text files, meaning that the actual code you open, you can look at them in Notepad and you could read it and you could program in it. However, there's no script highlighting, no color highlighting, no assistance. And so I highly recommend you download a default editor. So for that, I recommend, now I use AutoHotkey Studio, which is a bit more advanced, and I'll put the link just in case you want to check it out. But what I recommend you do is to go to this URL. I'm trying to copy it here. So this is my site, the-automator.com/site, S-C-I-T-E. When you click that, it's going to want to download an executable file. That's the site for AutoHotkey file, and we're going to save it to the desktop. It also, if we come back to Explorer, it's not a big file either, so it's a little bit over a meg. We're going to run that. And again, you can basically accept all the defaults, but we're going to say install. Yeah, that's fine. Wherever it's putting it is fine. Make sure this is checked, set as default AutoHotkey editor. This really helps you jump right into the code. And that's it. And it's going to create a shortcut to the desktop. So we'll install it. Should be relatively quick. Great, it's done. And bam, we're in site. Now your site might look a little different than mine because I have some custom settings that it remembers that I have this background. So your background is probably white, but it really isn't any different. That's the major difference. So yours also, let's do this. So I'm going to close site and I'm going to right click anywhere here and I'm going to say new AutoHotkey script. Now this is going to put a little template here and we'll just say start. Okay, and now when I right click on this and say edit, that is going to pull that site AutoHotkey file open in site for AutoHotkey because that's our default editor. So this opens it up. Now notice there's some code in here. These settings are the default settings built in for AutoHotkey. However, more often than not, they're more like recommended but not needed. So I'm going to clean this up. Now there is one that I wish they had in here, which is the # single instance and then comma force. What this does is it says, hey, every time I run this script, if it's already running, don't launch a second version of it, only launch this version. If you don't have this in your script and you keep launching stuff, you'll suddenly look down and you'll see you got like 20 little green icons on your system tray, and you got to go close them all out. So this is one way to help avoid that. And let's go ahead and save this, and let's talk through working on first let's add some comments. Now in AutoHotkey, a semicolon is a comment. So this is a comment. But if I was typing some other actual AutoHotkey code, like let's say, well, you see up above single instance force, or get, let's say get URL, whatever. When it's offering up stuff here, these are usually AutoHotkey commands like stir, split. And you'll see that they're highlighted. The green is always going to be just a comment. So it can be an inline, so I could have a command over here. So I can have a command here and see how there that turns green. So that's still a comment. I can have it on the same line or up above it. It doesn't matter. Comments are great because it really helps remind you what in the world you were doing. So let's actually change this to what it's going to be. Let's build a hotkey for launching Notepad. So, and let's see this Notepad. Now, before we do that, let me explain in AutoHotkey, there are these things called modifier keys. And the modifier key is something that you usually use in combination with another key. And that's because I could set up a trigger in a hotkey to respond right when I hit the letter T or G. However, of course, you normally hit those letters and you don't want it, usually you don't want it doing something to take away, from your typing. So these things are called modifier keys, and let's list them, the main ones. There are other ones, but these are by far the most common ones. So there's the Windows key, which is the pound key. There is the Alt key, which is the exclamation point. There is the Shift key, which is the plus sign. And then lastly, there's the Control key. Oops. Let's just Control, and that is the caret, which is above the 6. Now, there are a few others. These are by far the most common ones, and that's what the vast majority of all the hotkeys you do will use. So how you would write this is, let's say I wanted to say, when I hit the Windows N key for Notepad, so I'm going to say Windows N, and here you put 2 colons. So that is going to say, hey, when I hit the Windows N together, go do this action to the right or possibly beneath, and we'll cover that in a minute. So I'm going to say run, and this is where you'd put in the path to the file. Now, because Notepad is a system file, we can just type notepad.exe, and now I'm going to save this, so Control S, and you can launch it in a couple ways. You could click up here, you could click this blue diamond. I can see, as you can see right here, I could hit F5, or I could be in my Explorer window and I could double click it from here, or I could even come in here, and right click and say run script, run as administrator. We'll cover that a little bit later on. Oops. So let's go back into Site, and I'm going to hit the little blue diamond. Now notice this is my system tray down here, and right now there's no green H's in there. When I hit this blue diamond, bam, you see this green H show up down there. Right? Now that's how you know. This is one of the most important things, because some people will think, hey, I'm doing all this stuff, it's not working. Hey, you know what? Sometimes your script may not even be running. The very first thing you do is make sure your script's running, right? So now I'm going to hold down the window, and it doesn't matter what window I'm in. I don't have to be in this window. I can be in any other screen. I'm going to hold in the Windows key and hit N, and bam, instantly it launches Notepad, right? So, hey, how valuable is that? Well, launching Notepad, not very valuable. However, maybe there's other programs you use a lot, right? Maybe you want to launch multiple instances of different programs. You can easily do that with AutoHotkey. So let's go ahead and do another one. Let's keep it a little different here. Let's say Windows. Let's say you know what? Because Windows E actually is a hotkey built into Windows 10 to launch Explorer. But let's say I wanted to hit Alt E to launch Explorer. If I can spell it right, Explorer. Oh, I think that's right. So now, in order for this to accept it, I need to restart my script. So I can either, I gotta first save it. Now I can hit this, I can hit F5, or I can come down to my system tray because it's running. I can right click it and say reload, which I'll just do this time here. Now that restarts it, and now those new things I entered will take effect. So now when I hit the Alt-E, if I did this right, Alt-E, it launches Explorer for me. So you get the idea, right? You can add as many as you want. If your path is longer, you'll put the full path of it here. You can usually put it with quotes or without quotes. It just depends on the path you're doing, but more often it's not too hard. Let's say I wanted Windows N to both launch Notepad and launch Explorer. So you know what? Let's comment out both of these and cite, that's Control Q. Oops, hey, I didn't copy it. I want to copy them. So now I just basically duplicated them and then have the top ones commented out so you have them as an example. But what you would do is you'd put this on the next line and this, but what you want to do is you want to add a return. A return basically stops the script from moving forward from that point. So we don't want it to keep going down here if I had other things, right? So now I'm going to save this. Remember, always relaunch. So this time I'm going to hit F5. Usually that'll blink. Oops, wrong button. But I don't see it blinking right now. I'm going to hit this. I think it is reloading. Now, when I hit the Windows N key, Windows N, notice it launched both, right? So right there, we have one hotkey that launches more than one program, and you could keep daisy chaining and adding stuff in here if you wanted to, right? It's that simple. So that's adding a hotkey to running stuff, sending in the return. Let's go ahead and send let's work on sending a mouse click. All right, so let's first set up a trigger when we're going to go look for this button, and we'll have a hotkey call. We'll say Control T just for lack of anything else, and this is going to say this will activate window and click search. Now, as I first alluded to there, we're going to activate the window. Why am I saying that? Well, what if Site was in the background and you went to send a mouse click to a position where you think that search button is going to be, and it would basically miss it, or maybe even click a different button in a different program, and we don't want to do that. So first thing I like to do is just to make sure that we have it active. One of the easy ways to do this is to first, if you have a script running, and if not, you can go into the programs where AutoHotkey is installed and look for this program called WinSpy. But you can right click here and say Windows Spy, and that will bring this tool up. And what we want to do is click on the program you're trying to activate, and you'll see this information up here. There's a lot of information, but right now, pretend like we're not looking at it. And this is what we're going to work with here, this AHK_site. So I'm going to copy that from here. And now here, we're going to say win activate, comma, and I'm going to put that in there. And what that's going to do is activate site. So that is going to activate site. Now let me go ahead and save this. I'm going to hit F5 again to relaunch it and absorb the changes. Now I'm going to activate this window. Whoa, hey, where did we go? And when I hit Control T, watch what happens to the site window. Right, it activated it for us, and that's the whole point, right? It brings it forward. What if this was actually? I think this stays. Oh, now it's not what I wanted. Let's see if they'll do it though. No, because see, this window stays on top, unfortunately. So I can't easily show it. But let me see if. Oh, you know what? What do we got? Windows N will launch Notepad for us. Oh, and Explorer. That's fine. But now watch when I hit Control T, and I can be in any program. So that brings it forward, right? So that's the whole point of that line. It's just a good safeguard to do before you actually send a mouse click. Now, getting to mouse clicks, we need to know where the position is. So what I like to do is just first get the position, because there's a great command called mouse get position. And then you store the two things in your X and Y variable. So the first one's the X, and I'm going to call this, let's see, when X, and the second one when Y. Now that is going to, when it runs, it's going to get the position, meaning the coordinates of where the mouse is at that point in time. And let's, you know what, let's demonstrate how you can show this into a message box. So I'm going to type message box, percent when X percent, and we'll put in the A tab, which is, it's a special thing just to make it have a tab. I don't have, you know what, let me do it this way. Quote, space, quote, there we go. So now we'll just have a space in between them. Otherwise it'd be really confusing to read. And $2 and when Y. So now I'm gonna save this, relaunch it with F5. And when I hit Control T, so you'll see, oh, you know what? I don't need the, I forgot. I usually do these a different way. We don't need these when we're using the double percents around them. I'm just used to doing them the other way. But in this video, we're sticking to this because it's just what most people are used to. So anyway, let me relaunch it again. Now when I hit Control T, it comes up with these. Oh, apparently I didn't save it. And relaunch. And now Control T, notice there's no those quotes in there. So this has the coordinates of where the mouse was when I hit Control T. So now I'm going to come up here and get on over this box, and I'm going to hit Control T. And now it's saying 403 and 68. So I'm going to comment this out and this out. I don't need either one. You know what? Let me hit 403 and 68, right? This is why I should have Control T. Oh, it's still there. Sorry. There we go. It just went in the background. So 403 and 68. So there we go. So now I'm going to send mouse clicks to those coordinates. So we're just going to say click, and then bam, there we go. So that should give us those coordinates for where this is. So now I'm going to save this, and I'm going to run it with F5, and now I'm going to hit Control T. And look, it actually moved my mouse up there, clicked it for me, brought up this find box. That happened to have, it highlights whatever's in there, but you get the idea. And I can just keep hitting this, right? I could also, where is Notepad? Notepad can be active. Now when I hit Control T, notice it brought it forward, clicked it for us, and then of course I could automate this next step. Now you might want to build some logic and waiting to something's there, but for now we're keeping it really simple, right? So that's how to send mouse clicks to a coordinates of a given, a screen. All right, so let's work on running a hot string. Now remember, a hot string is like text expansion. So if I type something like BTW, I can tell it to replace BTW with the words by the way. Let's actually use that as a first example. So the first thing you do is start off with 2 colons and then the letters you want to type, BTW, 2 colons, and then the words that you want to type, by the way. Now there are some exceptions to this. However, for the most part, this is as easy, as simple as it gets. So I'm gonna hit F5 to again absorb my changes. Now when I move in this next line, any window I'm in Windows, right, I can type BTW, and when I hit a space here or a tab or a return, it will replace it with the stuff I put on the right of that. So it's by the way, right? Let's say I had, my initials, JG, and I wanted that, and notice I can even handle the capitalization, Joe Glines. So I'm going to save that, hit F5 again, and now when I type JG space, it throws it in there. And what I would highly encourage you to do is, instead of doing them this way, to add an ending character, like a period maybe. That's what I use. And that way, you'd be surprised how often, if you just use 2 letters, that those actually occur naturally in other things you're typing, right? So again, I'm going to save this, hit F5 to absorb those changes, BTW period space, and it works just like we want it to, right? Let's say we had some crappy password, not that I would ever do this. I want to say PWD period, and then I want it to enter my password, some crazy password I can't. Exclamation point. Now let's not do that for not can't. Remember. We'll cover those in a second here. So I'm going to save this, relaunch it. Now when I type pwd period space, I want you, there's going to be two things. One is, bam, there it is. But notice where my cursor is. Notice it's one spot after it adds a space. And generally speaking, on things like an email address, which actually let's add that too, or a password or whatever, we don't want a space, right? So the great thing is it's really, really easy in AutoHotkey to take care of that. Just add a O, the letter O in there. And now I'm going to save this, relaunch it. And now when I type pwd period and a space, notice there's no extra space after it, right? So let's say I had my my email address, and this one again, I'm going to plan ahead and say I'm going to put that O in there, Joe Blind's email. The other one I highly recommend, because I have hundreds of these, is get a pattern going. I use like the first two initials of a person, you know, their initials, their first name, last name, and then the letter E for an email, and then I put in the email address. So for me, that would be joe at the-automator.com. So again, save, relaunch it, and JGE period space. And there's my email address without any spaces. And just to demonstrate, let's bring up Notepad, right? This works. It doesn't matter what program you're in Windows, right? It should work. We'll cover if it doesn't work. Sometimes you have to do a couple things, but more often than not, these work fine in Windows. There are some advanced stuff. And I have a whole course on HotStrings on Udemy. If you really get into them, they're amazingly fun and really powerful. They're just on some things, so you get really advanced stuff, and it helps to have the nitty-gritty lessons. Right now, we're just showing you the basics. So we covered the normal way, having a character to help remember, you know, so it doesn't always get hit on accident, adding in a space. But let's say, what if we'll leave that up. What if we had something like this? Oops, we don't want that. I'm going to put BB period. You have to see the baby. And notice the exclamation point. This is a Seinfeld reference if you're a Seinfeld fan. So now I'm going to save this, relaunch it, come down here. Now watch what happens. BB period space. Now what happened? Hey, where's my exclamation point? You need an exclamation point. What happens is that exclamation point, if you remember from up above, the exclamation point is a special key in AutoHotkey. So it actually sent the Alt key, which we didn't really see, but it sent the Alt key to the GUI that you're using. So what we want to do, there's a couple ways to handle it. For now, let's keep it simple. We're going to wrap this thing in the curly braces. So the character you want to send that's a special character, just wrap it in curly braces. So F5 to reload, BB period space. There we go. You have to see the baby, right? So that's how you handle them. Again, let's say, well, what if this was the Windows key? Actually, this one should be interesting because we should see something on the screen. I think my my Windows key should pop up here. So BB period space. Oh, no, but it didn't send, I'm sorry, it didn't show up on my text. So again, we would just wrap this in curly braces and relaunch. BB period space. There we go. Now we have what we want, right? So if you have special characters, let's say we wanted this wrapped on 2 lines or 3 lines. An easy, simple way. There are more advanced ways. Let's get rid of that because we don't really want that. You have, and now what you do is you put in this tick mark, which is to the left of the 1, N. So let's put it there, and let's put it down here, the baby. So I'm going to save this, relaunch it. And now BB period space, and watch what happens, right? It dumps it across multiple lines. And because there was a space after it, that's why we have those that look like they're indented, right? We probably should have done this so it looks a little more natural. So save, relaunch, BB period space, and there you go. So that's doing it across multiple lines. The last thing I wanted to demonstrate is sometimes if you have a long hot string where there's a lot of text, you can send a paste, and this is kind of a combination of the other stuff we learned earlier. So let's do one where let's make it a hotkey instead of a hot string. So I'm going to say Control G. Oops, Control G. And now I'm going to add a note for myself I'm going to paste in text. And here, let's say this thing was really long. I've done it like with the Declaration of Independence, because you're literally sending the keystrokes with this, and that's why AutoHotkey, one of the reasons why it works so well. However, when you're sending that many keystrokes, it can slow down. You can try and do something else in the meanwhile. So a great way to avoid that is to first store what you want into a variable. But in this case, we're going to actually use the clipboard because we're going to send a paste. So we're going to shove it into the clipboard. So for that, we say clipboard : equals. Now, I'm not going to put a big text here, but this is really cool how this works. And then I'm going to use the send command, and that just says send. There's different versions of send. I have tutorials on this too, but for now, just use send. And we're remember the Control V, right? That's going to paste it, and I'm going to add a return so we don't have it go through, keep going down. So now I'm going to save this, F5 to reload, and now when I hit Control G, it dumps it in. And if you were watching before, you might have seen I could slow it down because you control the speed of the keystrokes being sent, but when you do this, it just literally sends a paste, so you don't get all the initial little keystrokes. It just dumps that text in there, and that's why with the really big HotStrings, it's a really great, or hotkeys, right? You could easily also have a hotkey tied, like let's say to your password or email address, and every time I hit my hotkey, it sends my password or email address to wherever I am, right? So these are great ways to simplify, a lot of the stuff. Again, they seem like little things, but trust me, this will save you a ton of time. I also recommend don't doing too many, especially hotkeys or HotStrings at the beginning. Start off with just a few and then add to them maybe weekly, because when you add too many at one time, it's really hard to remember. All right, let's move on to troubleshooting with your code. As I mentioned before, first thing, make sure you come in here and look to see the darn things running. Right? Because I can't tell you how many times you get hung up and you're like, oh, it wasn't even running. All right, I thought it was running. It's not running. The next thing that I like to do, let's say I'm testing this with a hotkey, any of these, and I keep hitting it, but I don't see any reaction. What I'll just do is throw in a message box, save it, relaunch it, and now when I hit Windows N, hey, there's my message box. I know where I am in this script. Right? I know I got there, because often you sure think you're getting there and it turns out you're not, right? So this is a simple, easy way to test that. Sometimes you might have a conflicting program, so you might try making sure you run it without anything else running. The other thing is there's the usability, user access control, the UAC. You could temporarily go into your control panel, Google it, you can go find your control panel. I don't recommend you turning it off, other than just temporarily trying to turn it off and seeing if that's what's doing it. If it is, you can look up, there's different types of send commands like send play and send event. Those might work better. The big one that often comes up, especially when you're sending text, is to run it as an administrator. So find the script. Let me find my Explorer window. There we go. When you right click it, you can say run, where'd it go? Run script, but say run as administrator. This will elevate the rights to it. If you have other programs you're trying to connect to and that they are run at the administration level, your script needs to run as an administrator level. So that's one that often comes up where people say, I'm doing all the stuff, yet it's not reacting. That's an easy one to test. Again, unless you need to have it elevated, I don't recommend you having it elevated, but if you do need it, then it's an easy, what you can also do is what you can do is do like this. I'm going to create a shortcut here. I'm going to right click it and go to properties. And then I think it's under, is it advanced? Yeah, and run as administrator. And that way, every time you launch that script from the shortcut, it will automatically launch as an administrative level. There's also code you could put into your script, but we don't want to get into that. So Hopefully you learned a lot of great stuff here of sending hotkeys and HotStrings. They don't seem like they're big things, and sending mouse clicks to given things, but these are the fewest, lowest hanging fruit, I think, that can really get you working smarter, not harder. Let's jump into a couple cool tools that I can show you that can also help speed up your learning on this. All right, so the first tool that I highly recommend is Quick Access Popup. And right here, if you go to quickaccesspopup.com, you can download it. What it is it's a program. It's written in AutoHotkey, but it's kind of irrelevant because you don't actually have to learn the code. It has a lot of the functionality that I demonstrated in this video, including using HotStrings to trigger snippet code, and using hotkeys to trigger things, or launch programs or launch folders and do whatever you want, and a lot more. I think it's available in 9 or 10 languages. It's open source. My friend John Alon's up in Canada, and he's written in. He's got a lot of good tutorial videos. This first one, check it out if you're interested. It's very easy. It's not for programmers. There's really no coding. It's very simplified. It's a GUI. Like, this is my quick access pop-up menu. I've structured things under it. And some of these, like, this is my stuff where I have snippets of code. They're my little templates that I can push in whatever window I'm in. Or you can launch folders, or you can launch shortcuts to websites. There's a ton of stuff you can do with it. It's really great. The second one, if you are getting excited about actually writing your own code, AHK Generator, or just ahkgen.com, is a site where you can come in here and say, oh, well, this is let's say we're gonna launch. It helps baby step it through for you. So launch Notepad. It's going to be a hotkey, and we'll say Control. What I say before, N. Select a function. Well, we're gonna do custom codes because we're gonna run Notepad.exe, and then you hit submit, and this will actually show you down here. So here's my comment. This is what it's going to do, right? That's written the AutoHotkey code for you. So it's a little interface just to kind of get your feet wet, right? And you can also share this with other people because the URL is sticky, so you can check that out. The third one is a code I have. You can go to my site, the-automator.com, and if you go to automate my task, here I have, it's kind of like a macro recorder for sending clicks and sending keystrokes to given windows and controls. It's a little bit advanced. I have some pretty decent tutorials on it. These videos down here, all the functionality is the same, but I've moved stuff around, so it all works. I just haven't updated the new stuff because I was getting some feedback. But here you can walk through, and basically, it assists you in trying to find an image or an edit spot in the field, and then you want to either click it or you want to send text to it or whatnot, and you can layer them in steps. So it's a bit advanced of a macro recorder. So I hope that helps interest you. There's also, I have 3 Udemy courses. Check them out on Udemy, or on my site. Actually, if you come here, you'll get usually the best price available. So these are the Udemy courses. This is HotStrings, this is Intro to AutoHotkey, and then once you get up there, there's an intermediate. I also have corresponding books from Jack Dunning. He writes a lot, and these are good if you prefer like a physical book, or I think he has them available in the Kindle versions also. And you can subscribe while we're here. Subscribe to my alerts to just think about what you could automate. So I hope this was helpful, and have a great day. Cheers.